were in Exodus 9:8, in the midst of the plague. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, and he hearkened not unto them, as the Lord had spoken unto Moses.
It's very important to do one quick thing on the Hebrew. It does not say stiffen, or what was that the word in the King James? Harden. It is clear what it says. This is easy. Vayechazek. The word chazak is in modern Hebrew as well. It means strengthened. He strengthened Pharaoh's heart, which goes back to my original point. He gave him free will. Mm-hmm. He did not deprive him of free will.
Mm-hmm. Right, that's a crucial point.
Crucial
point.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I wonder why it was translated as hardened, or even maybe hardened didn't mean exactly the same thing at that time in the translation.
That's right. That's just as when King James says, "Thou shalt not kill," for the commandment, which is "Thou shalt not murder." In those days, kill was murder.
Uh-huh. Yeah, but you can understand hardening of the heart as a strengthening of the will, in the sense that it's like a crystallizing of the Pharaoh's will. Like his will gets locked in, basically. And so you can understand
it's still up to the Pharaoh.
It's up to the Pharaoh, but it's like
as long as we know it's up to the Pharaoh.
Yeah. That's a very important.
Of course, there's also the point that it's still saying the Lord is behind this, and so I think the contention there is that the principles of reality itself are being shown forth here, and Pharaoh is himself within them. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't undermine his free will, so to speak, in the way that you're saying so well, Dennis, but rather it shows that it is itself, you might say, conditional upon these principles.
Mm-hmm. Well, he strengthened him to be the fullest version of himself.
Fair way.
Yeah, well, we'd also say, if we're going to accept the principle that a universe with free will in it is better than one without, even though that might allow for the emergence of evil, then we have to be willing to assume that if God is allowing even the Pharaoh free will, that is in some sense a reflection of something that's in the highest place.
Yes.
Right. And I think you can make a pretty good case that for will to be as free as it can possibly be in the metaphysical sense, it has to be able to span the entire dimension of choice between radical evil and radical good. And so...
But you remember in the first 5, it's Pharaoh who does it. And now, after the second 5, the Lord does it to him. In other words, he's driving him to the logic of his own settled choice, which is a biblical form of government, of judgment.
Right, well, that's a way to understand judgment. Even in the New Testament, you have the sense in which judgment is the consequence of your own decisions.
Right,
it's the natural consequence of your own actions, and that brings about...
And a reflection of your own actions. And there's warnings about that consistently in the Sermon on the Mount, right? That you're going to be judged by the criteria that you use to judge others, that's inevitable. Because they reflect it back to you, and you also practice it, and then necessarily and inevitably apply it to yourself.
And the fruits of your actions ended up almost being sometimes a judgment that is brought back upon you. But if you take drugs, you could say someone is a coke addict, and then you could say, well, God is judging you, but the judgment is just the behavior itself playing itself out on you, right? The world God created the world with an order. If you break that order, the consequences come. So you could call it...
That's my argument. You'll love this, because I love what you just said. So when I teach the 10 Commandments, I ask people, so what's the punishment for violating the Sabbath? And what I'm about to give you as my answer is heartfelt, because I know it from my own life. The punishment for not observing the Sabbath is you miss the Sabbath. Mm-hmm. And because if you keep it regularly, as I do, and you miss one, you really miss it.
Mm-hmm. What do you miss, like personally?
Oh, the rhythm of my life is that one day a week I leave the world. And if I don't leave the world that day of the week, 14 days go by when I have lived a secular life, and it gnaws at me.
Mm-hmm. This is such a fundamental principle, because it's so easy to approach a religious text as if this is somehow a myth someone made up that, about a God that is external to reality. He's going to punish me, but that really what this text, I think, is about is precisely this principle, is showing us from within what the principles of the real are. And this dictum that you've just given us about the Sabbath, which is so beautiful, this occurs also in Plato in the Gorgias. He says, it is worse to commit than to suffer wrongdoing. This is taken up by Boethius and others who argue that, goodness is its own intrinsic reward. I mean, you are one with the goodness you have done,
right.
just as evil is its own intrinsic punishment. And so
that's reflective of an intrinsic moral order.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.